continue taking it. It's kind of a fun, interactive part of the talk. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about collecting data via text messaging. Some interesting stats. By 2020, 90% of the world's population over age 6 will have a cell phone. Even now, more people in the world have cell phones than have toilets. And 350 billion text messages are sent each month. So text messaging is an important part of your data collection toolkit, and RapidPro is a great tool in that kit. So I'm coming from Cactus Group, which is a web app development company. We're located in downtown Durham, North Carolina. It was founded in 2007. At Cactus, we build Python and Django apps for companies all over the world. Some of our projects use SMS, and while we did not actually create RapidPro, we're proud community members. I'm a Django developer at Cactus Group in North Carolina. I'm originally from the Philadelphia area, where I was a web developer for, I don't know, 12 to 14 years, depending on how you count it, at an Ivy League university. Now I've been working at Cactus for about 2 years as a Django developer. I've worked on a number of RapidPro-related projects, which I'll be talking about today, including a dashboard and the community portal. Okay, so to get us started, what is RapidPro? You're probably wondering. You kind of had a sample of it if you took the survey today. You were a contact. Basically, at its core, RapidPro, which was written in Python and Django, is a tool for creating interactive messaging systems via workflows to collect, analyze, and categorize input from users. And you can see a really simple sort of workflow here. I'm going to kind of do something gangster here and turn off my slides for a second. So this is what RapidPro actually looks like. And this is what the survey looks like that you took today. So it looks kind of complicated, but it's actually really simple to use to build these survey tools. Yeah, let's get back. Okay. So what I'll be talking about today is how SMS is used today and why you should use it for data collection. I'll go over the high-level components of RapidPro, and then I'll take a deep dive into the survey that you took at the beginning of the session. And finally, I'll talk about the RapidPro API and dashboards like TrackPro. Okay, so the first question you might ask yourself is, why are we still talking about SMS? There are plenty of other communication channels available to us: WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, so many other things. But in reality, SMS is the #1 tool currently for messaging. Juggling many things. It's not reliant on constant network access or speed. Do I need this? I don't think I need this, right? Okay. Thank you. So it's not reliant. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, great. It's not reliant on constant network access to the internet or speed. It's got a simple user interface. People are used to using it. It comes built into their phones. And it's got a cost-effective implementation. Some real-world examples of some powerful use of SMS. In education, we currently maintain a dashboard app that displays data that UNICEF is capturing over RapidPro. It's used in remote regions of Africa to capture information like attendance rates. But just on a personal level, I have a friend who uses an app called Remind. And with that app, he can remind his students to get their work done on time. And he says it's pretty amazing. So Libya is a North African country that's in quite a bit of political turmoil. Cactus Group is proud to have worked on an application for SMS voter registration in Libya. And it alleviated problems such as traveling to registration centers, which can be difficult or dangerous, and registration changes getting lost or delayed. Consumer convenience. I know I use SMS to have Walgreens remind me to pick up my prescription on time, and I've also used it for two-factor authentication. And finally, for crisis response, universities and local townships can use SMS to tell people in their townships when there's an issue that they need to be aware of. So several of those examples I mentioned are powered by an open source service called RapidPro. Okay, so what is RapidPro? So it was conceived because UNICEF, a large international aid organization, sponsored its creation to address 3 requirements to cover all of their text messaging application needs. They wanted to avoid custom development every time they had a new project that was using SMS. They wanted to be able to base all the interactions off of the API so that it was easily extendable. And they wanted to be able to scale easily from pilot to production. So these are, I think, all of the communication channels. There may be one more. They're always adding more, available in RapidPro today. At Cactus, we like to use Twilio. It's our top choice for production because it's really user-friendly to developers and it's available all over the place. Twitter is great for experimentation. Twilio charges you per message, so that can get pretty pricey if you just want to set up a local environment and play around. Twitter is really great for that because it doesn't charge you. So RapidPro has a GUI-based flow editor, which I flipped over to there and showed you. A flow is made up of a series of actions, rules, and connections, which I'll be diving deeper into in the deep dive. So it also allows you to manage your contacts, which you can either bulk upload your contacts via a CSV file or use triggers. You can also group your contacts as needed, and you can store profile information. And the nice thing about that is you can decide what metadata you want to save about your contacts. So if you really want to save all of your contacts' favorite animals, you can create a field for that. And finally, it has some modest tools built in for collecting and analyzing data. And also allows you to download your results to CSV. Okay, so if you had a chance to take the survey, here's a deep dive into the pieces of the survey. So first of all, how did we start the survey? I didn't have anybody's phone number in the room. I didn't have your Twitter handles. And the way we did that was with the keyword trigger. What was the keyword that we used today? Thai Caribbean, right? So a few notes about keyword triggers. They cannot include special characters, and they're available for all channels. So we set up a Twilio channel and a Twitter channel today, and the keyword trigger just automatically worked on all of those channels and joined you to the survey and made you a contact in our instance of RapidPro. And there's 2 ways to create this keyword trigger. One is from within that flow editor. When I brought up the flow editor really quickly, you click edit, you can see there's a way to add a keyword trigger here. You can add as many keyword triggers as you want in this step, and you can also have a setting to ignore keyword triggers while in the flow. So if someone, for some reason, types Pi Caribbean in the middle of the survey, they won't get taken back to the beginning. You could also create a keyword trigger via the triggers navigation. And the reason you might want to do that is if you want to focus on specific people, specific contacts that are already in your instance of RapidPro. A quick aside, there are about 7 different triggers available in RapidPro. I find 3 of them really useful. I like the group join trigger. Let's say you are a teacher and you want your parents of your students to be able to sign up for text blasts, but you don't want to collect all of their phone numbers, you can create this trigger that has the join keyword. They'll automatically be joined to that group that you set up in RapidPro. They'll get that message back to let them know that they've been joined to it. And you can also, which is really nice, start a survey or flow here. So you can create a new step that asks them for their information about their kid and records it to your RapidPro instance, to their contacts. And then another trigger that is really useful is scheduling your surveys to run at a specific time if your contacts are already in RapidPro. Okay, getting back to the flow. So how we built this flow, when you're building a survey, you want to think through sending a message, categorizing the response that you get back from the user, doing something with the response, and then repeating. And if you've ever drawn a pseudocode UI diagram, you sort of can think through the way RapidPro works. So when you're categorizing, you want to think about what kinds of responses you're going to get, how many you want to divide them into, what you want to do for each of those responses, and how do you deal with a response that you didn't expect. So quick tip, RapidPro is not case sensitive. So if you were answering in all caps today, we didn't think you were yelling at us. So let's look at the first question in our survey today. We asked if you'd like to take the survey. And we expected you to either say yes or no. And we prepared for that. For yes, we would accept yes or even the letter Y or the word OK. And for no, we would accept even just the letter N. And those are the only two categories I put in. But you can see there's a third category that automatically pops up, and that always shows up in RapidPro. So that's the other category. What are different ways that you can deal with other? You can ask again in a new way. You can loop back into the original question. You can just accept that they responded in some way you don't understand and move on to the next step. Or you can do nothing, which means the person is no longer going to be going through your survey. So that's not maybe the best thing to do unless you're at the very end. In this case, the way we dealt with other was we asked the same question again in a new way. Just to let you know, we're going to go over features from the survey during the talk. So, just one more chance. Do you want to take it? So let's go over actions and expressions. We talked about categories and categorizing our responses and sending responses. So what are RapidPro expressions? And you'll see this in the RapidPro documentation. I like to think of them as variables combined with functions. So RapidPro expressions, start with an @ symbol. You use @flow if you want to use live results that you've been tracking through your survey to retrieve saved responses from the flow results. Use @contact to use a contact field. The knowledge base is great, so search for expressions. But if you're familiar with Excel, the syntax is modeled on Excel, and many Excel functions are available. regex is also available, which is really cool. It's great for data integrity. So let's talk about an expression we used today. We asked you at the very end of the survey what your name was. So we used that value with @flow in order to thank you for taking the survey. Let's talk about some actions you can take. So you can take a bunch of different actions other than just sending a message when you're in your flow or your survey, however you want to think of it. You can add a contact to a group. So today I asked you whether you prefer a cat or a dog, and I used the add contact to group functionality to put you in cat lover or dog lover, depending upon your response. You can also, another action you can take is you can edit a contact. So at that same time that we thanked you for taking the survey, we saved your first name to your contact field. And you can call an external API. And I think this is one of the most powerful uses of RapidPro because it's a way you can really integrate your current applications. You can call an API that you have for your current application or for an application you use. So for today's, we use the Pokemon API. We called out to the Pokemon API in 2 different ways. Either you didn't know a Pokemon character that you wanted to look up, or you had one in mind. So if you didn't know one, we picked a random number, and because I'm familiar with this API and I know there are 812 Pokemon, I did a random number to point to the API and give you one. Or if you did know the name, we would call the API via that name. Another thing you'll want to do if you do call an API in your flow is, just in case that API call is taking a really, really, really long time, you can build in for failure, which hopefully nobody saw today, but it happens. That Pokemon API can be really funky. So there are a ton of actions you can take with RapidPro. This is pretty much all of them. And you can take them at each step along the way. So you can both add a contact to a group and send a message and send an email all in one step. OK, we also had a calculated variable today, which I think I just showed. But yeah, do you remember what the calculated variable was? It had to do with your percentage of, it's a really silly one, the percentage of Python-related conferences you attend per year of working with Python. So we first asked you how many years you'd worked with Python. And then we asked you, and we saved that variable. And then we asked you how many Python-related conferences you'd gone to, which you may have a hard time remembering, but just take an estimate. And then you can use this functionality called split by expression in order to calculate a variable, which is really cool and useful. So we divided that number of conferences by the number of years and gave you a percentage back. OK, so this is the last part of my talk. The RapidPro API is very well documented. And on your instance of RapidPro, if you just go to /API/v2 now, they are just moving on to version 2. They are supposedly going to turn off version 1 as of March 1st, which is good to know. But it's really very nice. You can use webhooks to notify your server of new events. And you can, this is the live API Explorer here. This is an image of it to let you click around and see the JSON data that you'd be getting back from the API. And it's super useful if you're going to build custom dashboards, which we did at Cactus. We maintain and built most of TrackPro, which is a dashboard on top of, or separate from RapidPro, that collects data and displays it in charts and maps. So we used Celery in order to keep the data locally in our TrackPro application. So we use Celery to call the API on a regular basis and keep that locally in the TrackPro database. We used high charts and high maps in order to build charts, which we also added filters to, which don't show in this picture, but you can filter by dates and groups and all sorts of things. And also high maps to display that data on regions. TrackPro is completely open source, and that's the repo. And finally, the other custom dashboard that we built was for this year's PyCon. So we built this. We have this thing in Cactus called a Ship It Day, where we spend one day every quarter working on something that we want to learn or some project we want to do. And so we spent one Ship It Day working on our PyCon booth project, which was a RapidPro survey that we then built a custom dashboard for, which uses high charts and high maps again. And when people came up to our booth at PyCon, they were asked if they'd like to do the survey on their phones and then see the results live on this custom dashboard. So in summary, I'm a big fan of RapidPro. I think you should be using it if you have any SMS needs. The community portal is at community.rapidpro.io, and you can go there to sort of get to know RapidPro and see how it's being used all over the world. It is completely open source, and if you are itching to try it, a really fast way to get up to speed is to use TextIt, which is the commercially hosted version. They give you a free account to start, and it's got a little bit of credit, so you can play around a little bit. Or you can host it yourself. Cactus also provides hosting. Still working. You may want to host it yourself if you have a high volume of messages, or you have custom storage needs, or you want custom feature development, such as the dashboards that I was talking about. Cactus can help with all of those things. Thank you for taking the survey. I will be, if you're interested,